Hey everybody. Well, this is different, isn't it? Yeah, you're not used to seeing me in the video, are you? Well, today I am making an Italian meat sauce. And I'm doing it because I want to make something else afterwards. But it's going to be a delicious Italian meat sauce. Now, you're saying, hey Tom, are you making a Bolognese? And I'm going to say, no, this is not a Bolognese. And I'll tell you why it's not a Bolognese. Because this is a pound of ground beef, but it's also a pound of ground veal. And this is sausage, which is going in. Obviously, the pancetta is going in. And I'm putting in a little bit of garlic. So, the traditional, authentic Bolognese from the Chamber of Commerce in Bologna doesn't have the garlic, doesn't have the sausage, doesn't have the ground veal. But everything else you see laid out here is probably okay, right? It's going to have the milk. It's going to have some nice red wine. It's going to have a lovely homemade beef stock. Now, the other thing you might say is, hey, Tom, that red wine is not from the region. Fair enough. But this is going to cook for 2.5, 3 hours. If you could tell me after cooking it for 3 hours that you know that that wine's not from the region, hey, my hat's off to you. Now, to be clear, this is what I'm calling an Italian meat sauce, right? Because it's obviously got Italian ingredients. But it's not a Bolognese. I don't want any of you Italians out there losing your shit because I'm going to call this a Bolognese. It's not a Bolognese, okay? Are we clear about that? So now, let's get started. You see what I've got? I've got an onion. I've got the celery and the carrot. Now I'm making a mirepoix, right? So this is about 250 grams of onion. So I've got about 125 grams of celery, and I've got about 125 grams of carrot. That's going to get peeled, washed, diced finely. I'm going to dice my pancetta very finely. I'm going to break up that sausage. I'm going to brown all the meat. It's going to be awesome. You'll see. We're going to take care of the mirepoix, okay? Now, I'm not going to bore you with all kinds of chopping and dicing and slicing, but I am going to show you how fine I'm going to do this, okay? So for the celery, so here's something that happened that was real interesting. My battery died or was about to die on my iPhone. So I had a microphone hooked up to the iPhone, and that microphone just stopped working because it was conserving battery. So here you see I'm browning the beef and the veal. I'm going to just mash it up a little bit. And okay, so I had to add audio afterwards. That's fine. But we'll do this quick. Right, I'm going to break up that meat, and then when it's browned and when it starts to actually fry in its own fat, that's when I'm going to remove it. So you see how there's a lot of juice in there right now? We're going to take it to the next level. Okay, see I just put a little bit of salt and pepper in there. Well, just salt, but you'll see they'll go with a little pepper. And you see how I'm just stirring it up, and you see there's a lot of stuff stuck to the bottom of the pan. We're going to pick that up when we deglaze later. Okay, so now I've taken the beef out. I'm going to add my little bit of olive oil, and then my sausages. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So now the beef and the veal is done. Here go the sausages. And when the sausages are just about, cooked and frying in their own fat, I'm going to then add the pancetta. So, we're doing this nice and quick, but you see the idea. The idea is to get the meat brown, because there's a lot of extra flavor in the meat when it browns, as opposed to just graying it like if you're making chili or something. Okay, so let's see, next step here. See how it's gotten a little darker, but it's not quite there yet? Okay, but now we're adding in the pancetta. Now that pancetta, I probably lowered the flame a little bit, and that pancetta, I wanted to render its fat as well. And you notice also how the pancetta doesn't look like it's all cubed up. And that's because I minced it up a bit with my knife. And again, I've seen other guys do this with a food processor. You can use a food processor if you want, but why do you want to dirty up all this kitchen equipment when you could just use a knife? Okay, see how nicely it's frying, right? That looks nice. So we're going to let all this brown, and then I want to reserve that fat to cook my vegetables, my mirepoix. So what I'm going to do is with a slotted spoon, try to pull out the meat, but leave behind all the browning and all of the oil. And then I'm going to put my onions and carrots and celery in there and let them fry in that fat. And really, it's not a fry. I'm going to just, saute it. But I'm going to keep all that fat because that is flavor. And it's not too much fat. All right, so here we go. Last little bit. It's kind of weird that I'm narrating this after the fact, and everything I was talking about when I was recording it is gone. But hey, it's okay. All right, so here we go. And you don't hear the sizzle, right? There's no sizzle happening. That's okay. So there's my carrots, onions, and celery. And when they sweat, they're going to pick up some of the brown on the bottom of the pan, but not all of it. And after they sweat a bit, then they're going to start to brown. And you see, I'm going to throw a little bit of salt in there, just a little bit. And you notice how over this different stages of this, I've put a tiny bit of salt and a tiny bit of pepper, but at the end is when I'm going to season it. And remember also, the beef stock that we're going to use has no salt. It's unsalted. So whatever salt might be in the tomatoes or the tomato paste is going to add to it. So we're going to be very, very careful at the end here not to oversalt this. Also, there's going to be some cheese in it later on. You'll see. But now, after this goes to the next level, you see how I'm putting in my Italian seasoning, right? And then I'm going to add, very shortly, I'm going to add my basil and parsley, fresh basil, fresh parsley. And then, after we stir that up a bit, I'm probably going to deglaze with the red wine. I don't know if that happens right now. Yeah, here we go. We're going to deglaze with that red wine. Now you see how also, just by rendering the liquid out of those vegetables, I picked up a lot of the nice brown on the bottom of that pan. But we're going to hit it with that red wine. And that red wine's pretty much going to sizzle away and cook quickly. So I'm going to put a little bit and scrape up and then put a little bit more. And we're just deglazing. Well, I want to get all that goodness up. You see it? Oh, that's beautiful. That's a lot of flavor in there. And yeah, you remember I'm using a Bogle Merlot. It's not wine of the region, but I think it's okay because, this is going to cook for a couple of hours. Okay, so I'm going to hit it with a little bit more of the red wine. And then we're going to scrape it up. And then I'm going to add the rest of it. And I'm going to let that reduce a little bit. And then I'm going to put the beef back in. The beef, the veal, and the pork back in. And I'm going to add the tomato paste and the whole tomatoes. Very shortly. Here we go. Tomato paste. Now this acts as a super thickener, right? I'm going to add a whole can. That's, I guess, the 6-ounce can. I'll double check that for you. I'll put it all in the notes in the recipe as well. But a whole can of tomato paste. So that's going to thicken this up quite a lot. Stir that up, and then we're going to add the plum tomatoes. And I love these San Marzano plum tomatoes. You can use any brand you like, I guess. But they're consistent, They are consistently the same. I like that. So imagine the sizzle. There you go. Okay, here goes the meat. Right, so there's the veal and the pork, sausage, and the beef and the pancetta. That's a lot of flavor.
It's a lot of flavor. And now here come the plum tomatoes after this. Drum roll, please. Maybe I'll go get a drum roll. Okay, there's the rest of that wine. There's my tomatoes, and I'm just going to hand crush them. Oh, they just splash everywhere, don't they? I hand crush those tomatoes, and they're going to cook for a while, and they're going to dissolve and disintegrate into this lovely sauce you'll see at the end. And then, I think that this sauce at the very end of this was the right consistency. And maybe for a lasagna, if you were going to do a lasagna, maybe you want to make it a little thinner. I don't know. But yeah, I think it was the right consistency. Okay, so now, a lot of times I'll put a little water in that can and rinse it out. But remember, I've got 2 cups of homemade beef stock going in this. So I'll probably just rinse out that can with some of the beef stock. Here we go. Yeah, I'm so predictable, right? Nice. And that homemade beef stock is golden, because it's got a lot of collagen in it, and it's really rich and luscious. So we're just going to mash all that up. And then, after we get it to the simmer, it's going to go in the oven, covered. Look at how beautiful that is. And already it looks nice, right? But now it's got to all meld together. Yeah, this is it's a really nice sauce. And I guess the only issue I have with it is that when you make it, you've got to make kind of this much. Like, it's going to be hard to cut this recipe in half. I mean, you could, but it'll be hard. And that's it for now.
So my battery was dying. So it is in the oven, 350 degrees. It's in the oven. It's going to be in there for about an hour. I'm going to stir it up. Then I'm going to put the milk in, give it another hour. But man, my battery was dying. Okay, it's been in the oven. Oh boy. Been in the oven for about an hour. And I stirred it a couple of times. Look how nice and thick that looks, right? Isn't that beautiful? That is beautiful. So, here is 1 cup of milk. And I'm going to put a 2nd cup in. Here's a 2nd cup of milk. And I think that is the color I'd like it to be for right now. That looks beautiful, doesn't it? All right, let's get the lid back on and get it back into the oven for another hour. Okay, it's been 2 hours. An hour baked and then another hour with the milk in it. I'm going to put a 1/4 cup of Pecorino Romano. Now, it's really, really hot. It just came out of the oven. But I have to taste it for seasoning, for salt. Because remember, I didn't put much salt in the meat or in the mirepoix, which means it's probably going to need some salt, and I'm going to do that very carefully. So it's very, very hot right now. I'm going to let it cool a little bit, and then I'm going to taste it for seasoning. But look at how beautiful it looks. That is a lovely, lovely meat sauce. Okay, I'll come back in about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, and we'll see about seasoning it. All right, so as I said, I didn't really put much salt in here. I seasoned the mirepoix, I seasoned the beef lightly. So I just tasted it, and it could use some seasoning. I'm going to hit it with a teaspoon of salt, and we'll stir that in. Put a little pepper. Let's stir that in, get it mixed up good. Give it a taste. And then we'll see if we need more. I don't want to over salt it, obviously. You know, and that beef stock had no salt in it. And, you know, all right. Give it a taste. I think that was the right amount of salt. All right. It's a little bit of homemade sourdough. Just the bread I have laying around. And we're going to give it a taste. Well, that's a nice sauce. I'm going to let it cool down a little bit more. And then we're going to put it in a container, get it into the fridge. We'll let it cool down just a bit more. Another half hour. Okay. We are